Māra always pushes us toward the wrong path, for those who have already fallen into an addiction, whatever kind it may be. This disturbance from Māra always appears, trying to make the person relapse. When they meet others with the same addiction, those people offer just the right reasoning to win them over, to soften their resolve until they give in again. Just a little, they say. It's nothing. No one's forcing you. And that is enough to lead someone right back onto that path. The Sukho once knew of a man who died of a stroke, a man who had already recognized the danger beforehand. He had come home from abroad to visit, met up with old friends, and started drinking with them. After about a week, he told his family the partying had made him feel unwell, and that he would stop going out. It made him too sick. His family was relieved. But about 10 days later, just as he was about to fly back abroad, his friends said, "Let's just sit together this time. No drinking at all. We know your health isn't good, so we won't even offer you a drink. We'll just talk. Whoever wants to drink can drink. You don't have to." But once they were all sitting together and the others were pouring their drinks, he ended up having one too. That night he came home, said he was tired, and went to bed early. But at around 3 in the morning, he got up to use the bathroom, and on his way back, after only about 5 steps, he collapsed and died on the spot. No one was there to know. So we must be careful of Māra's power of temptation. When something we already recognized as wrong, something we already gave up, keeps calling us back. That is the path of Māra. Remember this well. If we have already seen it as wrong and let it go, and yet someone still uses sweet words, still creates the conditions to pull us back, we should understand. This is Māra at work. This host of Māras joins forces with whatever impurities still remain within us, using them to lead us back into wrongful indulgence. That is the way of Māra. Now, all of us here were born into the realm of desire. Except for those who have already attained the fruits of the path, the rest of us are always inclined toward sensual pleasure. Our most immediate tendencies are toward eating, drinking, and sleeping. These are always deeply alluring. When we step into a crowd, Māra whispers, "You only live once. Why not choose the fun?" That's what Māra says. So even in the very same crowd, some people create merit there, while others act exactly as Māra tells them to. Whatever brings enjoyment, people rush toward. Whatever requires hard, tiring effort, people avoid. When such thoughts arise in our own minds, we should recognize them for what they are, the voice of Māra. Sensual pleasure is always a trap set for us. It is mainly the Māra within our own mind that builds the trap, with the willing agreement of the smaller Māras around us. Together, they form a group, a network, colluding with one another to lead people further down that indulgent path. Nowadays, you can see many so-called practice movements springing up everywhere, and the very aim of such practices already reveals what they are, claiming you don't need to practice much, don't need to study the teachings. Yet there's a shortcut to quickly become a Buddha. No such thing exists. If we want to attain awakening, we must study the Buddha's own teachings and purify our minds according to his path. Anything promising an easy way to practice and still get there is the path of Māra, and we must be extremely cautious. Because this kind of seduction is appearing everywhere, even reaching young nuns training in temples. It's a small number, not a large one, but its influence spreads region by region, group by group, until, and this needs to be said honestly, some who fell for it ended up taking their own lives, because what looked like real practice at first slowly turned into something else entirely. That suffering became a kind of self-destruction. Others simply left monastic life, feeling they could never return. So remember, when we study the true Dharma, it always teaches us to purify our own minds and release our defilements. The easiest defilement to notice in ourselves is our temper, if it's still there. If we're still irritable, still easily annoyed, still dissatisfied with this or that, we know Māra is present in us, and that the fruits of the path are still a long way off. So we must keep striving. The true Dharma always calls us to correct our own wrongdoing, and this takes time. It is not simple. It moves from the coarse to the subtle. At the coarse level, most of us already know the difference between good and evil. But at the subtle level, we need the Buddha's teachings to overcome Māra. Without them, we cannot. Now let's turn to the theme of delight and lifespan, which we've touched on before. Māra claims that a human being is born for one purpose only, to enjoy life, and that wasting one's youth without indulging means missing the chance forever. Māra also claims that samsara, the endless cycle of rebirth, is a wonderful thing. Die, come back to life, enjoy it all over again. What could be better? But the Buddha said no, because when we die, remember this. When the mind becomes afflicted and begins to decline, the first thing it does is recall old memories, and specifically the unpleasant ones, the things that irritated us, troubled us, oppressed us. The mind clings to those first and keeps recalling them. And when we die without swiftly attaining a good rebirth, as a human being or a celestial being, but instead fall into a realm of suffering, even into an animal existence, that painful pattern repeats itself, especially in the realms of hungry ghosts and spirits, over and over, becoming a kind of stagnation that traps the being in its own past. Meanwhile, whatever goodness we had cultivated gets buried, and who knows when it will ever surface again. Honestly speaking, no matter how much of the teachings we know, no matter how deeply we understand them, when death approaches, we still feel fear. Because that fear has become a habit we carry through countless lifetimes. Only once we have truly entered the stream of the noble ones are we free of it. And this is exactly why every religion rejects suicide. Suicide solves nothing. Because it is not the body that suffers, but the mind. Destroy the body, and does the suffering in the mind disappear? No. It becomes heavier, more stagnant, more degraded. And then, who knows when we will get the chance to be human again? Under no circumstance should we ever think of taking our own life. Suffering does not live in the physical body. It lives in the mind. Destroy the body, and the mind's suffering simply continues in a new and lesser form. Remember this clearly, so that we never accept Māra's words and let ourselves be carried along by them. Māra often teaches the view that death is the end of everything. Enjoy life now. No one who has died ever came back to keep enjoying it, so why not indulge while you can? And for those who believe in rebirth, Māra flips the same argument. Since you'll be reborn anyway, enjoy now, and you'll simply enjoy again later. Either way, Māra always has an angle. So the more clearly we understand this, the better. So we are never seduced, whether the temptation arises in our own mind or through the persuasion of others. Let's move to the second chapter, on I and dominion. Here, Māra follows the Blessed One, trying to find fault with him, checking whether he still harbors any attachment to the 5 sensual pleasures, hoping to use that against him. But the Buddha said he had already gone entirely beyond them. Think about what that means for us. When our eyes see something beautiful, we want to enjoy it. A beautiful house, beautiful clothes, a beautiful car, a beautiful setting. And we become attached to it, wanting to have it, to keep it. When our ears hear gentle, kind, agreeable words, we cling there too. And in fact, most people who get deceived in life are the ones who love hearing pleasant, agreeable, even seemingly moral words, only to discover later that it was just talk, and reality was something else entirely. It's the same with every one of our senses. All of them are seduced by whatever pleases them, and we become fixed there. What pleases us, we crave more of. What displeases us, we push away, again and again. Either way, it leads only to suffering, never to true happiness. Māra used this to test whether the Blessed One would fall into that same fault. But someone who has completed this luminous path no longer falls. As for the rest of us, still living in the realm of desire, when our goodness and wisdom are strong, we rise above it. When they become clouded, we fall. This is exactly why we sometimes hear of someone who seemed so upright, respected in their family, trusted at work, suddenly doing something so wrong, so shocking, that we can hardly believe it. We shouldn't be surprised. In that moment, their goodness was simply obscured, and their desire grew too strong to resist. There's also a story in the 3rd chapter, called The Majority, where the evil Māra appears disguised as an old, hunched Brahmin, urging monks to enjoy sensual pleasure rather than give up the present moment for the sake of things governed by time. But they don't listen, because Māra's present moment means indulging the senses, while the practitioner's present moment means meditation, means true mindfulness. They are not the same thing at all. And that's exactly why Māra's temptations, offered to genuine practitioners, cannot succeed, thanks to the great merit of those who trained as monastics in the Buddha's own time. Today, though Māra enters temples very frequently, tempting people there to break their vows just as often, as Buddhists, when we set foot in a temple, we should be creating the conditions that help ourselves and help the monastics keep their precepts. If instead we create the conditions for precepts to be broken on both sides, then that becomes a shared road straight to a lower realm. And here's often how it unfolds. Someone begins by sincerely making offerings, taking care of everything at the temple, until they've earned real trust. Then they find whoever manages the temple's finances and say, "Why let this money just sit there doing nothing? Give it to me. I'll put it to work." The principle stays intact, and every month there'll be a little extra for this or that. No more relying only on donations. Times are hard, they add. People get scared and stop coming. Better to let it grow quietly. A few months of this, and the entire fund, principle included, is gone. That is Māra, walking a monastery straight down the wrong path. Māra tempts in smaller ways too, persuading young nuns to pool their monthly donations into informal saving schemes to eventually buy a motorbike or a car, through people who dress up, wear perfume, and linger too close to monks, which is obvious enough for anyone to see, and, more subtly, through excessive attentiveness toward sick monastics, cooking for them, tending to them constantly. Be careful. This, too, is a path Māra walks often within temples, more often than we might think. Watch yourself, in case you become one of these influences yourself. Remember, for anyone who has ordained and lived on a temple's offerings, returning to lay life is never as simple as just walking away and finding wealth and comfort. It almost never turns out that way. Instead, what tends to follow is a great deal of hardship. And that's without even counting what happens if, during their time as a monastic, they broke precepts in thought, in speech, or in body. If all three are broken, a lower rebirth becomes certain, with far greater severity than similar mistakes made by ordinary lay people outside monastic life. So this is worth remembering clearly. Receiving people's donations does not automatically bring us merit. How we handle that trust is what truly matters. Mishandled, it can lead to real harm rather than any benefit at all. Now to the third section, where Māra tries to obstruct practitioners, hunt for their faults, and impose accusations on them, especially against someone already awakened, like the Buddha himself. In one well-known episode, Māra sees the Blessed One resting and challenges him. "Why are you sleeping? Is it craving? Laziness?" And the Buddha calmly replies that he no longer has craving, nor is he caught in any such net. Unable to find a real fault, Māra simply invents one. But remember, a true practitioner, deep in meditation, remains alert even in sleep, having trained the mind to rest while still aware. If something happens, the habit of meditation reasserts itself instantly. And for someone who has reached the very summit of practice, resting or sleeping is nothing like it is for an ordinary person. The mind stays clear and awake throughout, with no laziness and no delusion in it at all. In another episode, Māra rolls a huge boulder toward the Buddha to frighten him, and elsewhere claims that the Buddha roared like a lion in the middle of an assembly, by that point treating himself almost as the Buddha's rival. But all of it is futile, because for a fully awakened being, nothing is ever obscured, everything remains clear. Māra's efforts can only harm Māra himself. This brings to mind something worth reviewing about the nature of spiritual attainment. A fully awakened being can bear witness to the attainment of an arahant. An arahant can bear witness to someone at the first, second, or third stage of the path. Someone at the third stage can witness for those at the first and second. Someone at the second can witness for the first. But someone at the first stage can only see so far. Only those with higher attainment can see downward, never the reverse. We cannot look from below and pass judgment on those above us. Remember this, because with the defilements we still carry, we're simply not in a position to judge others. That is precisely Māra's error. A being from a realm of suffering, wisdom obscured, trying to pick apart the faults of others? It is nothing but folly. Not everyone is qualified to criticize everyone else. A certain level of understanding is required before judgment becomes meaningful. Much like how, even among doctors in the very same hospital, only a specialist in one field is truly qualified to weigh in on that field's specifics. The rest may listen and understand in a general way, but they are not in a position to speak with authority. It's the same for us in life. We need to know where we actually stand, and whether our own understanding truly reaches far enough to comment on something. Overstepping that line is Māra's foolishness surfacing in our own mind, a reason to be careful whenever we're tempted to criticize, condemn, or speak confidently about matters we don't really understand. There's also a teaching here on nutriment, on the food and drink that sustain our bodies. When we consume according to our preferences, remember that karmic tendencies travel right alongside those choices. Our inclination toward certain foods, and our continued choice of them, forms a channel through which karma flows. Worth examining, to understand what we were attached to in past lives and what we remain attached to now. Consider, for instance, why some people insist they can't stay healthy on a vegetarian diet, that it's simply too hard to manage. If a vegetarian diet leaves you feeling unwell, and only meat restores that sense of health, it may be worth recognizing an old attachment carried across many lifetimes, one still shaping our present habits. When something we're used to is missing, we feel off, incomplete, uneasy, and that discomfort itself is a sign worth paying attention to. And that's only the most visible form of nutriment. There are three others: contact, volition, and consciousness, each a stream of past karma meeting the present, together carrying us through the cycle of rebirth. In one account, when the Buddha went out on his alms round, Māra tried to block every offering, hoping to leave his bowl empty. Māra even suggested returning to the village a second time, promising to arrange offerings if he did. But the Buddha replied that for a true practitioner, the joy of deep meditation is itself already a kind of nourishment, enough, on its own, to sustain the body and hold off hunger, with no need for anyone's intervention. From this we can understand, whether a monastic's bowl is full or empty on any given day is entirely a matter of their own merit. And the same is true for the rest of us, working hard in the world. Whether we end up wealthy, comfortable, or struggling, it comes down to merit-meeting effort. Talent and hard work matter, but without merit behind them, everything tends to slip away, no matter how much we strain against it. Understanding this helps us feel content with whatever we have. Without that contentment, we start reaching for shortcuts, sometimes dishonest ones, just to gain a little more. And today we see the results of widespread discontent everywhere. People willing to put harmful substances into the very food we eat, simply to profit more while doing less. Ironically, the people capable of creating such harm are often the very same people skilled enough in science to know exactly what they're doing. And in refusing to accept the honest fruits of their own effort, they choose deceit instead, a path that can only lead to decline. As for those of us on the receiving end, lacking the merit to avoid it, we're left facing struggles that, frankly, are plain for everyone to see today. And if we don't find our own way to rise above it, nothing external will do that for us. Wherever we go, we carry our own karma along with us. Think of how many have lost their lives, or lost everything, trying to escape one set of hardships by fleeing somewhere else, only to discover, if we simply follow the news, that the places they hoped for peace in are not free of hardship either. Wherever we go, we carry the fruits of our own actions with us. There's no outrunning them. So the more useful path is to accept whatever measure of merit we currently have, and to make the most of it honestly. Trying to alter our circumstances through superficial or dishonest means, chasing quick fixes rather than addressing what actually shapes our fortune, tends only to add new difficulties on top of the old, while the underlying pattern stays exactly the same. Finally, a story that's worth remembering. There was an elder named Godhika, deeply resolved in his practice, who nonetheless kept losing a temporary state of liberated mind. The first time, the second, all the way to the fifth and sixth. Overcome with discouragement, he took his own life. But his habit of meditation was so deeply ingrained that, in the very moment of his death, which did not come instantly, but took a second or two, that habit reasserted itself with full force, and in that instant he attained complete awakening. When Māra discovered he had died, Māra searched every realm of existence trying to find where he'd been reborn, and found nothing anywhere, because Godhika had passed entirely beyond rebirth. The Buddha explained to Māra that this elder had not committed the fault Māra assumed. Every person's karmic fruits differ, shaped by seeds planted long before, and outward appearances rarely tell the whole story. This is why we should never stand outside someone else's experience and rush to judge, criticize, or assume we understand what's happening in their life. Doing so places us, without realizing it, on Māra's own side. None of us is truly more foolish than another. We all share the same basic capacity for understanding. What differs from person to person is simply how each of us responds when our own karmic fruit ripens and comes due. Do we meet it in a way that keeps us moving toward greater clarity and peace? or in a way that only adds to our own misfortune? That depends on the clarity we've cultivated and on the wholesome habits we've built, across not just one life, but many. Training our own minds to live steadily within what is good. That, in the end, is what allows us to find true freedom.